Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on the Craft of the Draft channel. In this video, we're going to be looking at every single Vic Country and Allies player that played in the Under-18 National Championships, and we're going to be grading each player from A to C. The way that it is going to work is that we've ranked each player in three categories. Now, for me, the way I've done that is by position, and there's three different categories for each position: midfielders, forward, defenders. I'll give an example. For midfielders, they're ranked on their decision making. For me, their hurt factor and their point of difference. For Jonty, that's something completely different.
Yeah, so for me, I've gone collectively, every player's ranked via the same threshold, and that threshold is their draftability, that they've shown their productivity throughout the championships, and then their point of difference as well. So we'll go through the Vic Country players first, and then we'll move to the Allies players, and we're going alphabetically. So we start with Jasper Olga, and Jasper Olga rated quite highly for me with his productivity, because I thought in games 1 to 3 he was really lively and quick and quite good overhead as well. He averaged more than a goal a game and took 3 marks per game as well. It felt like he took a bit more than that. He was certainly an aerial presence when the ball came inside 50, and his draftability is rising as well. He's had a strong school footy campaign, and he also went quite well in the Vic Country trial, so I gave him a B+.
Well, similar reasons. It was his scoreboard impact I thought was there. His ability at ground level as well was quite terrific, and I thought he was able to elevate from talent league level. To clarify as well, these are out of 10 each category, so they get a score of 30 in there. They're grouped accordingly depending on how he did it. So for me, he got a B+. It was a pretty solid championships from Jasper Olga. James Barrett is the next player up, and I thought he worked well into his role in the back line. That's where he's probably going to be best suited moving forward, in my opinion. I think if he's to make it to the next level, he was able to work pretty well one-on-one and played his role quite well. He ended up with a B for me.
He ended up with a B- for me. He played the 3 games. His first game up forward, I thought, was quite good. He kicked the 2 goals, 3 tackles, and 5 marks. Really aggressive and showed what he could do. But then it was obviously an undersized backline, so he went back there to help, and his physicality was a real asset in the last 2 games. He probably wasn't able to really impose himself on a game like I expected. I was really high on his Bendigo form coming in, but he still had some important moments and gets a B- for me. We move to Joe Berry, who gets an A for me and was ranked quite highly across my 3 categories. His draftability is close to a 10 out of 10 now. He's just about a draft lock, and he was so productive across the championships, rose in that last game with his work rate and certainly his speed and his overhead marking as well. He kicked 9 goals across the 4 games, so that's a team high for Vic Country, and he averaged the 4 marks and 3 tackles as well.
He was outstanding. It was his work rate for me in that last game that showed what he's really capable of, not just as a small forward, but pushing further up the ground and really making an impact. He was one of 4 players for me that got an A+ in terms of his productivity. I don't think he could have asked for any more from Joe Berry. He didn't struggle to take that next step up from talent league level to championships level as well. So he was terrific. I thought that point of difference was awesome from him and Isaac Kako. I feel like respectively in either, in country and metro, both showed why they are the top small forwards in the country.
I said he got an A. He got an A+, sorry, for me as well, with the score that he ended up with. Floyd Burmeister, the next one, and he still ranks reasonably highly with regards to draftability for me, because he's got that athleticism, and he did show some glimpses at the champs. I didn't rank him all that highly for productivity. I would like to have seen him do a bit more. We do know it is hard for the raw tools to really impose themselves sometimes, and that point of difference is, I suppose, that athleticism and size. He does look fluent when he flies for the footy, but I would like to have seen it a little bit more throughout the championships.
I would have to agree. I think he's got a real good attack on the footy. His pressure inside forward 50 when the ball comes in, he really does make himself a hard target to work with, and obviously had some time in the ruck as well. Still a lot of work to go with him. Like you said, he's quite raw. He was a C for me.
We move to Harry Charlson now, who I thought started the campaign terrifically in that first game for Vic Country and distributed really well out of defence. He's one that if the ball's in his hands, you know he's going to make a good decision, and a really composed decision as well, with his trusty and reliable kicking, averaging the 18 disposals and 4 marks, plenty of intercept possessions in there as well. He was a 7.75 out of 10 for me for productivity, and was quite solid across the board in the 3 categories. Maybe a point of difference was something that he couldn't quite establish in this championships, but yeah, he ranks as a C+ for me.
Yeah, he was an interesting one to rank. I gave him a B+, and it was his efficiency for me as one of my categories that ranked him really high. I agree with the point of difference. I think he wasn't able to go into that midfield mix where I think was probably the potential for him to show that, because he's done that at Rebels level. So whether that has limited him a bit, I'm not too sure, but I still think he executed that halfback role really well and was probably one of their best in terms. He probably was their best in terms of efficiency from a defensive point of view.
Archer Day Wicks was an interesting one for me to rank his next up. Now, he's ranked a B+, which is higher than Harry Charlson, though I would say Harry Charlson did have the more productive championships, no doubt, across the course of the carnival. But what Archer Day Wicks has is that X factor and that dynamic marking ability and the ability to play that high half forward role really well. We saw it against WA. It looked like he threatened to tear the game apart, and although he wasn't able to, it's those draftability factors that saw him ranked quite highly for me. He kicked 4 goals across the 3 games, wasn't held goalless in any of the games, had a quiet start, and then obviously had his big moment in that last game that almost won Vic Country the championships, averaging 10 disposals and 4 marks.
Yeah, well, it's his point of difference that really kind of increases his score, because it was a matter of moments, and his productivity, I guess, was on the lower end of that in terms of across 4 quarters, but he produced those moments. His point of difference is still there, which he was able to show, especially in that last game. He got a B for me, which I think he's probably fair given the way across 4 games you look at that, but I think he's obviously a better player than a B. It's just, base of the champs. Yeah, that's where he sits for me. Jonty
Fall next up, he gets an A for me, and he ranks really highly for draftability. Everyone's after that key forward who's able to really impose themselves on a contest and drag down a contested mark. And after what he was able to do in the middle 2 games in particular was excellent. I thought the first half of his second game was absolutely dynamic, and he threatened to really tear the game open. So yeah, it was really good, and his contested marking was next level, as we touched on. So he was excellent, kicking the 5 goals in 3 games and converting his set shots as well.
Yeah, he was awesome when he comes in. He's such a special player to watch, and I'm glad that he has built from last year. I feel like there was every potential he could just become a bit of a sometimes impactful forward, but he's really built. He's got stronger, and he was able to showcase that. He gets an A for me.
Ollie Hannaford next up, and was quite consistent across the board for me, ranking between 7 and 8 in all the 3 categories and finishing with a C+. I thought he worked hard and showed his intensity across the championships, but probably the thing that held him back was his ability to really showcase his weapons was only seen in stages, I thought.
He's a really hard one to analyse, and I love the way he plays his footy. So his defensive pressure is elite, and you can't fault it. I do agree. The point of difference is where you question with Hannaford. I mean, he is smaller. You can't really run him in, put him through the midfield. On the outside, he's probably still, again, lacks a bit of that height. He's a hard one. I mean, he'll still be looked at, I think, just because of how productive he is and can be. And those pressure acts, you don't find many players like them. And I said this to you, I think he's similar to Oscar Smart last year. He's just got a bit more poise than Oscar. They've both been that toughness and that ability to size up the ball, the play ahead of him. He gets a B+ for me, and I think it was still a good championships without being amazing at the same time.
Cooper Hines next up averaged the 17 disposals and 1 goal, and his second and third games were his best, but he stood up late in all 4 games. It's worth touching on the fact that Vic Country's cumulative margin across the 4 games was 22 points. I spoke to Harvey Langford earlier in the week, and that was something he talked about, the fact that late in every game there was a chance to really stand up, and he was one who certainly did that. So he had some big moments, which was a massive tick, and that strength and ability to finish in general play was really, really crucial, and with his strong body, he ranks really highly for draftability.
Yeah, 100%. He's got that flair about him where the ball goes to ground inside forward 50. He's that natural reel-around player who just takes that opportunity, will snap at every moment. I feel like he kicks the same goal every time, which
he does. Yeah,
it's a weird statement, but when you watch his goals back, it's like the same goal, snap around the body, but he's so effective and good at that. Was super productive, old champs, and like you said, took his moments when they needed to be taken, and I gave him an A in the end.
Yep. Likewise, Xavier Ivasic, he ended really highly for productivity for me, and he finished with a B+. Probably unlucky to only end with a B+, I guess you'd say. But yeah, he was somewhat of a surprise starter for me in that Vic Country midfield, but more than repaid the coach's faith by putting him in there with the hunger and energy and zip that he provided around the footy, and certainly was among the better players in all 4 games. He didn't play a poor game across the carnival.
Oh, 100%. He's one of the most aggressive midfielders and he doesn't he's smaller for a mid, but it doesn't seem to impact the way he plays. If anything, he uses it to an advantage where the ball goes to ground, he's first at it, and he gets it out cleanly. He's so aggressive. His hunt on the footy it was terrific. I mean, it's still the point of difference with him. I would have liked to see him off half back. I don't know why I have this view, but with that rolling half back roll at AFL level, seems like, players come in and they get moved there. He's got great pace. Like, he's so zippy and efficient. We've seen that, at Falcons level with him playing at half forward at times. So he's got that ability. He was a B+ for me. Excited to see how he finishes the year.
Lachie Jakes was another one who ranked as a B+ for me. I thought he was super productive throughout the champs, though. I believed his second game against WA was first class, and probably his best game because his composure behind the ball was excellent. His first game, he showed that real athleticism, and then in his third game against the Allies, he got 501 metres gained. So, really took the game on by foot and by hand, and also had the 9 intercept possessions, but he was a really calm presence behind the footy and finished, like I said, with a B+.
He was in between a B and a B+. He finished with a B for me, and I just think there's a lot of unlocked potential with Jakes. Like you said, that athletic side of him was only shown a little bit in games, but you see how impactful it can be, and he was super productive pretty much across all games. It's just, I feel like there's that next level he can still take. Like, there looks like quite a promising player with Jakes. His speed, he's got that like real understanding of how to work a defensive structure well. So he was a B for me, but it was really productive. I thought a B could be a little harsh.
Harvey Langford next up, and he gets an A+. Out of everyone that we ranked across the three teams, the Allies, Vic Country and Vic Metro, he ended up with the highest score, as he should have, being the Lark medalist. But it was really hard to fault him in any category because all 4 games were terrific. He was among the 2 best players, according to the coach's staff, in all 4 games that he played. So, absolutely outstanding. And in terms of point of difference, that ability to go forward and take a big contested grab really sets him apart. But I thought he showed something different in each of his games. So in game 1, it was his poise under pressure. In game 2, in the wet against WA, it was his clean hands and work rate. Then in the third game, his clearance work was really good, his in-to-out handballing. And then in game 4, he obviously had some really impactful moments highlighted by that big contested grab. But hard to really fault what he did. 26 disposals, 3 tackles and 494 metres gained per game.
Yeah, I can't really add anything to that. He was an A+. He was my highest as well. I mean, my question with him was how impactful he could be in the midfield at that level. I've loved him as a half forward at the Rays, where that high flying capacity where he'll just get his hands onto anything. And he was great in the midfield, but I mean, Dandenong's midfield has been weaker than previous years. So I was kind of questioning how that would translate. And it translated terrifically, and you summed it up really well. So an A+ and my leader in the end.
Sam Lawler next for me. He ends with an A. His last 2 games were obviously brilliant, and his last one was arguably among the best on ground. And that potential that he's got, that draft ability, is really scary with how big he is and how he uses his power and strength, particularly in the front half. Averaged more than a goal a game, finished with the 3 goals in the third game, and that was a really eye-grabbing display against the Allies.
Such an impact player. Like, you couldn't ask for anything more when you could put him in any side and he'll do everything he possibly can to will his team over the line. It was that contested marking capability was outstanding. It was terrific. And even though he didn't see as much midfield time, we know how capable he can be. He's that real aggressive power midfielder that can really just use his strength to burst through stoppages, and he was terrific in the games he was able to show. He'll have a massive end to the year, and he was an A for me.
Xavier Lindsay with an A+. He finished second out of everyone across the board in terms of score with what he produced. But I just don't think anyone had a better individual game all champs than what Xavier Lindsay did on the big stage against Vic Metro, with his first quarter really setting the game up and allowing Vic Country to insert themselves into the contest, and then his last quarter almost dragging his team over the line. Whenever he went into the midfield, he was purposeful. He won clearances and he was so efficient. And whenever he was on the outside, he was so energetic as well and was able to link up and move really smoothly. But to average 8 clearances across his last 2 games, there was a game that he missed in there against the Allies, was really important. And he averaged 7 marks, 5 tackles and 23 disposals. He's
easily the smartest player in the draft, and I'll live by that until that's draft night. His understanding of the play ahead of him, how to get rid of the ball and create things ahead of him, is elite. And then you add to that how good he is around stoppages with his pressure and his defensive capability to lock down and win one-on-ones and do all those little things so well. He didn't play a bad game, I don't think, and he was up there for an A+. So I've only got one more A+ player, so he was terrific.
Should have said off the top the players that only played one game and the bottom ages we haven't given a ranking for, but we will discuss them at the end. And next up is Mitch Lloyd. He played the first 2 games, and we probably didn't see the best of him at the Champs. He spent some time on Tyler Welsh, and I actually thought for the most part he closed him down, but then Tyler Welsh obviously exploded in that last quarter and almost dragged SA to victory. He averaged the 14 disposals and 5 marks and had some eye-grabbing moments, probably quieter in the second game. I think he deserved a third game, to be honest, but yeah, he gets a C for me.
Yeah, hard one to analyse, and he got the tough job on Tyler Welsh in that first game, which I think he still did well. I mean, Welsh is a hard one to match up on because he'll just have a period of 5 minutes where he'll turn it on, but you could shut him down for the rest of the game. So you look at that and think, well, it wasn't actually that bad of a game. Yeah, I think there's still a lot of development left with him, and that was probably what we learnt from this championships. And he's been great at CTL level. It's where does he take his footy next? He was a B for me.
Yep. Finn O'Sullivan is one who ranks highly for me because we know he's getting drafted, and his point of difference is how many different skills he seems to have and just doesn't seem to have a weakness, and he does it all at a high level. But his productivity in his last 2 games was not as high as he would have liked, but coming in cold off the injuries makes it quite tough. He stood up when the game was on the line in the last quarter against the Allies, went into the midfield and won some crucial contests, but was quite quiet in that last game against Vic Metro, which he would have been a little bit disappointed with. But coming off injury, it's hard to be too critical. He gets a B.
Well, that's the key point. Coming off injury, it's hard to be critical. I mean, he's a C for me because he was average by Finn O'Sullivan's standards. So, but you saw that impact late in against the Allies. So, I mean, point of difference could be a 9.5 for him in this sense. It's just, I mean, not a lot to go off. So, yeah, he's a C, but it's a kind of a nothing grade for him. You don't really take...
No, you don't. And you giving him a C, me giving him a B shows that we graded them in different ways, and that's how the different scores seem to have come out. I think we'd agree with what he produced throughout the championships. Jack O is one who got a C+ for me. He was quite reliable on the wing, and I thought he ran the patterns quite well and opened up teammates when he needed to. Probably the thing that let him down was what's that point of difference. He's got size, and you need size to play that wing role now, but in terms of hurt factor, he probably could have shown that a little bit more, and we've seen it a little bit at Rebels level, but he played the 4 games, and I would have just liked to have seen him elevate himself at some stage, which he probably wasn't able to do, averaging the 14 disposals. Yeah,
it's the hurt factor that let him down in the end because he's got that point of difference with the height, and he's got a good running capacity. He just wasn't really able to make an emphatic statement in any of the couple of games. I keep comparing him to... which is blank. Joel Fraser, yes, of last year. Same kind of size. Joel Fraser just had that explosiveness that I think Jacko does have. It's just a matter of really exploring it, and I hope he does, elevate to that next level in this back end of the year. He's a C for me. But, I mean, not too much to be panicked about because he still has that point of difference that he's just got to, unleash.
River Stevens played the first 2 games. I thought he deserved a third game, much like Mitch Lloyd. Unfortunately, didn't get it. And he kicked the 2 goals and took 7 marks in a really eye-catching first game, 12 touches, and was important off half forward for Vic Country, showing real promise and elusiveness. He finishes with a B- for me.
He finishes with a C for me. I do agree. He showed a bit of a flair, just moving inside 50, understood when to take his moments. It's just a matter of how can he hurt you for longer in game. So he was a C for me.
Alex Taru is next up. He finishes with a for me. He didn't get a whole lot of the footy throughout the championships, and I just would have liked him to have won it a little bit more and had a few more moments, particularly in the second and third game. But in that first game, his intercept marking, and particularly, we saw in the second and third game as well, that he could intercept and take the game on and played with real courage as well. And what he's got is now real draftability, and it's going to be hard to see him not getting drafted because of the traits that he does have. But I thought he could have been a little bit more productive across the course of the 4 quarters for the 3 games.
Yeah, that's interesting because I don't kind of see that perspective where he needs to be involved as much. I still think what he did is impactful, and that's the role he plays. And I think it would be great to build on that in his game, but I don't think he needs that right now. I think what he's showing from that lockdown perspective is been terrific. And, we talked in the podcast about that rundown tackle moment. He executes all those little defensive elements so well, but I can understand about his productivity, but he's an A for me. He was great.
Yeah, he finished with 5 intercepts, 4 marks and 10 disposals in what was his strongest game, the first game he played at the championships. Toby Travalia, A+. Yeah, wow, what a championships he had. Every single game he contributed massively, and his ability to, we talked about in the podcast, but to balance attack with defence was what really stood out, and we know he's got the flashiness as well. Something that probably flew under my radar, though, was that in 2 of his games he went at more than 80% efficiency, which is really impressive for a player that's getting as much of the footy as what he is and taking the game on as much as what he looks to do. So not only does he take it on, but he hits his targets up the field, 9 score involvements against the Allies, and that was pretty consistent across the carnival, that when he got the ball in the back half, he was able to set up some really dangerous forward thrusts and was really competitive overhead as well, had some huge moments late in the first game.
Yeah, good way to sum it up. I think the big question with him throughout the year was, his size. Like, he doesn't have a heap of strength, but he does on the field. Like, he'll win contested marking battles. He's got strength in the contest to push out and get those first few steps off and really speed out everywhere. But I agree with everything you said there. He was terrific, wasn't he, across every game, and he was an A+ for me.
Reece Unwin gets a C+ for me. Like Finn O'Sullivan, really hard to read given he came in cold and just played the last 2 games coming off injury. But he did show some elusiveness and fleet of foot, some of those real antagonistic small forward traits, and I really like what he showed in that first game, and then we didn't see a whole lot of him in the second game.
Yeah, tough one to analyse, Reece Unwin. We saw that Allies game. He was awesome in terms of how crafty he can be moving forward, and in that second game he probably wasn't able to show a lot of that. Had a really good moment early, but just wasn't able to get himself into the game. I mean, he's a C for me, but don't really think that speaks to the potential he does have. I think he can be as impactful as a Lockie Charlson last year at the Rebels as well, where they just have that. I mean, Lockie Charlson kicked 8 goals in a game, and I think that did get him drafted. I think Unwin has that potential to have that really big game, and I still think that was against the Allies, but he's a C.
Ollie Warburton next up. He averaged the 19 disposals, and I gave him a C. I feel like I wish he got a bit of midfield time, and that's where I really struggled to see the point of difference with him when he wasn't in the midfield mix. He played off half back and probably didn't have the hurt factor or anything that really separated him. He wasn't able to play his usual role as that clean extractor. So although his output was really solid, he didn't have that real statement game, even if he did build towards something quite strong in that last game against Vic Metro.
It's just hurt factor for me with Ollie Warburton, because he's a coach's dream in terms of his productivity and his work rate and his effort. It's all there, but it's just that point of difference to where's he different to those other midfielders where he can be real explosive or show that extra trait. He was a B- for me. He wasn't a C because his productivity is so high, and you definitely do notice his impact. It's just where can he hurt you a little bit more, I think, going forward is where he's really got to develop to give himself every chance.
And the Whitlock twins is where we finish. We start with Jack Whitlock, and I gave both the Whitlocks an A, but I gave Jack Whitlock an A first up. Yeah, obviously really, really draftable, and I thought, his point of difference is obviously his size and his ability to take some contested marks, and in terms of productivity, he pulled down some big contested marks throughout the championships, particularly in games 1 and 4, so he bookended his championships really well. He reads the drop zone really impressively as well, and can also stand under that, I guess, high bailout kick inside 50 and at least create a soft drop for the small forwards, averaging 15 disposals, a goal and 5 marks. It was a great championships. Yeah,
it was same as you. Both got an A for me, and Jack, the only thing that lowered him a bit was I just wish he hit the scoreboard a bit more and converted in those crucial moments. I mean, I go to the last quarter of the Metro game. He gets that he increases his game, increases his goal kicking ability, 2 per game at champs level. It probably really boosts him up, but otherwise he's, like you said, his marking capacity was there. We know how versatile he can be and the opportunities he presents for the others in the forward line as well, so he was an A.
Yep. And then Matt Whitlock, I've actually gone slightly higher in terms of the score he ended up at. Obviously, it's still an A, but yeah, only reason I went with him higher was because he showed he could play at both ends of the ground. So we know he's mostly a defender, played a game forward, was provided real presence when he was up forward in that third game, but then also intercepted really well that last game in the first half. He was really important when he got the ball, and also was really hard to beat across the course of the champs.
I think he's continued to prove that he can be quite calm and composed out of D50. I guess the question with him was his composure under those real tight, compressed moments inside 50 where the ball's at ground level. But I think he was able to show that. And yeah, we were literally the same. I had him just a little higher than Jack, and he was an A as well, but they were both terrific.
Yep.
All champs. So that's all the players that played at least 2 games to rank. So we're just going to go through some of the bottom ages now for country and a few that only played 1 game, and just give our pretty basic thoughts on their performances. Willem Dersma's the first one to talk about. Was pretty good. I mean, maybe we expected a lot more just because of, we know what he's capable of. He didn't need to be that player, but he was still productive, showed some nice moments. He'll build really nicely into next year. Your thoughts?
Yeah, 3 games. Had it a little bit tough in the first game where, Vic Country just went in with not much height. He had to play as an undersized key defender. When he went to the wing in his last 2 games, he was a little bit better and showed some of those glimpses. Noah Hibbins-Hargreaves, another bottom major that's going to be really hard to stop next year. Played an unfamiliar wing role after playing forward for Dandenong and was quite strong. He finished with the 13 disposals in his only game and had some moments. Yeah,
he was great. He's had a terrific, middle of the season for Dandy, and it was good experience for him. He'll be so much better for it. Riley Onley, if he was in these rankings, he would get an A, to be honest. If we're probably. He was awesome, wasn't he? His stoppage craft was amazing. I mean, he hit the scoreboard. He was actually a vital piece of their championship run. If they go to win it, he's one of the one of those top players in the end. But yeah, love the way he went about it. He'll be a beast to stop for Murray in the back end of the year.
To win clearances the way he did as a bottom major, really impressive. Flynn Penry played the 1 game. I think a little bit harsh on him in the fact that he's coming off injury and came in for that 1 game, but then we didn't see him at all for the rest of the championships. And just really hard to get a read on that game for him. And I guess put Jordan Doherty as well, another ruck who played just the 1 game. I thought he had a tough duel against Logan Smith from the academy, the Northern Academy, the GWS Academy. And although he was obviously beaten in the ruck, he did show his ball handling and confidence with ball in hand when it was in general play. Yeah,
Greg, I guess that's where he can elevate himself above other rucks. And Cohen Paul was the last one on that list. Pretty sure it is, but he was. I guess the thing with Cohen is it's his hurt factor again. He just needs to find a way to really impose himself in games because he's able to find the footy quite well, and he's a great runner. His work rate's there. He played that first game against SA, but it was just his involvement. He probably needs to take that to another level.
Riak Andrew was the other one. He played a game as a defender, one of the middle 2 games. And the stats probably don't reflect it. He did have a couple of moments, but we probably didn't see the best of him at the champs. And only getting the 1 game makes it really tough. And coming in so late in the champs, he might have felt like he needed to prove himself or something along those lines. But it was good to see him get a game. But we didn't see the best of him. We move on to the Allies boys, and we start with Ollie DePoli Q-Bank, and he finishes with a B+. For me, his draftability and point of difference are both ranked reasonably highly, and his hands are so clean. He's really quick hand to foot in the contest, and that makes him quite hard to stop and makes him really opportunistic inside 50 and dangerous as well. So I really liked what he did, getting 7 score involvements and laying 2 tackles inside 50 against Metro. I thought that was a pretty productive performance.
Yeah, he gets an A for me in terms of his... I think he was able to show that he's got that point of difference where he can push up and be a player on the outside, but in the forward half, he's really electric and can take his moments really well. He hit the scoreboard, and it never really felt like he was going to get himself into most games he was in. He was really struggling early in the champs to get his hands on the footy, but once he did, he was quite a productive part of Allies championships. He was a good player in transition to link up with, and he was, he's got that agility to move around in contests and get around with a lot of ease. So he gets an A for me. Could have fallen into the B+ category, but I do think he was one of the Allies' better players throughout the championships, which was an up and down one for them.
We're just doing the players who play COTD Talent League. We're not doing the academy kids. We move on to Lenny Douglas now from the Tasmania Devils. He gets a C+ from me. He's obviously still quite draftable and has the explosive point of difference. But yeah, obviously his productivity throughout the championships was quite low, and we didn't see the best of him throughout the championships. He didn't play with his usual confidence and flair, which is a little bit disappointing from his end. He'll hope to have a big finish for the Tassie Devils. But he could have produced a little bit more, averaging the 9 disposals and only kicking the 1 goal.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It was a little underwhelming. I think because of what he did at CTL level, there was a lot of unlocked potential that he probably wasn't able to get the most of out of these championships. But he's one that will go back to Tassie and really tear it up still. So he'll be disappointed, but there's still a lot of growth there, and it's not too many concerns at this point in time, so it's a C for me.
Lockie Hogan next up. He finishes reasonably highly with productivity. Came in for the last 2 games as a late addition with Geordie Payne getting drafted in the mid-season draft. And I thought he made a real statement in the first half to the selectors who left him out in wet conditions. It really suited his competitiveness and physicality, and he used it quite well in that first half of the first game. But across the championships, he went at just over 70% efficiency, which is a bit lower than normal for him. We're used to his ball use being one of his weapons. He gets a B for me. And was a bit quieter in that second game that he played.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. He's a B for me as well. I thought his productivity was there. It was hard for him in quite a stacked midfield. Like that was it had a lot of depth there, so he was really up against it with those type of players. But it would have been a great experience for him. He is a B for me in the end. I'd agree with most of what you said there.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about stacked midfield. He probably ended up playing his best footy off half back. Yeah. Ben Kennedy next up. I thought his last game against Vic Metro was against Vic Country was his best game. He finished with the 3 intercept marks and 5 marks in total from 13 touches, was a good presence behind the footy, but I don't think we saw it enough across the course of the championships and across the 4 quarters of the games that he did play, and I still do question his point of difference and that sort of thing. We have seen it at school footy, and from all reports he's going really well at Xavier College, but would like to see it at CTL level now that it was a solid but not absolutely statement-making champs. He's a C.
Yeah, I'm going to move on because that's a C. You've summed that up really well there. Sam Marshall is the next up here, and he was awesome. He was my favourite to watch throughout these championships in terms of his productivity and his efficiency. He didn't really put a foot wrong, to be honest. I mean, he quieted down in his last game, but he was always switched on through the corridor. He didn't have to be a stoppage player. It was in transition where his eyes lit up and he was able to show his offensive flair, get the ball moving forward with ease. There was poise and class in his ball movement. He was my highest ranked with an A.
He got an A as well for me. Yeah, obviously really efficient, averaging the 27 disposals and 4 tackles. Yes, there were more eye-catching mids like your Leo Lombards, but I thought he really enabled them to play to their strengths with what he did. Josh Murphy gets a B+. For me, he's obviously so draftable and he's got the point of difference with his strength and power in terms of one-on-one and in the contest. I thought his productivity I ranked reasonably low, and that's just because I've seen him play some outstanding games for the Murray Bushrangers, and he probably only produced it in spurts. He had that massive moment in his last game where he kicked a goal from 50 and did that here and there, but didn't really ever piece together a 4-quarter performance. Yeah,
really tough one to analyse Josh Murphy. It was a player of moments, but I still think his productivity was just good enough to get him a B+ in the end compared to a B, because when he does take those moments, he's so impactful. You lose Josh Murphy in a forward line, you feel the difference. So that's kind of where I sat with him, that Allies would have been a worse team without him. So he was able to show his impact. He did hit the scoreboard in most games. Yeah, so it was a B+.
Jobe Shanahan gets an A for me in terms of draftability, ranked really highly. Productivity was the lowest of the 3 that I ranked him in, but that's he was ranked highly across the 3 categories, and that last game really lifted him, and I think he really needed that last game, kicking the 3 goals and taking 4 contested grabs and involved in so many scoring chains. He was huge for them, and we know how good he is when he flies for the footy. It was good to see him show it.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the thing with these forwards is, I mean, at the end of the day, Allies only won one game, so that they weren't the better team in most of their performances. SA was a real 50-50, but they were never the best team in most of their games, which is why it's hard to rank these boys a bit more than the Vics where they were winning most of the time. So, yeah, I think his point of difference is there. That's what really ranks him up in the end, and he was an A for me.
And Nathaniel Sulzberger gets a B- for me. He's so strong and hard at it at Sandy level. He's got that brutality with the way he attacks the footy. We probably didn't see that aggressiveness at Champs level, though he obviously had that strong first game, but overall averaging 14 disposals probably speaks to the fact he was probably outshone by some other midfielders.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. His first game was terrific, and I think I had him in my top 5, but it was his ability to really impose himself on the same level as his other midfield counterparts that I think he lacked a little bit of in those championships, because I don't think that takes away from the class he has as a player, but it just wasn't able to be shown as much as what he would have hoped. So he was a B- for me.
And then I'll touch on Waylon Davey-Motlop, and you can finish with Ricky Mentha, the two that played the one game. Waylon Davey-Motlop, yeah, pretty quiet in the game that he did play, but we know what he does. He pops up for moments, and that's what he is at the moment. He'll want to become more of that sort of four-quarter contributor and add some different strings to his bow. But in terms of what we've seen at Oakley, translated it with his ability to just kick a huge goal for the Allies and keep them in it, and it was a real X-factor sort of goal. And Ricky Mentha has that similar sort of pizzazz and played that same game as Waylon Davey-Motlop as well.
Yeah, and it's similar. I mean, he just needs to find a way to get himself involved a lot more, because he's got that X factor, but he hasn't shown what he's capable of outside of that forward half enough, I don't think. So there's still a lot of room for improvement for Ricky Mentha. I think he's one that has to have a big end to the year to really increase his chances, because he probably has fallen away a little bit this year in terms of productivity, but we know it's there with Mentha in terms of he's got that talent, raw talent. So interested to see how he finishes his season. But that wraps it up for this video on Vic Country and Allies. Please make sure, if it's not out already, the Vic Metro rankings as well will be accompanying this video. So thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more content on the channel, and we will see you in another video.